Hey guys, my name is Lauren and welcome to my channel, and today we are going to be talking about books I read in the month of December 2020. So in the month of December, as you may know, I participated in the Reindeer Readathon and I was on Team Snowflake and we won. Whoop whoop. But I will definitely link my TBR for the Reindeer Readathon if you're interested in that. But spoiler alert, it did not go the way I planned it at all. Yeah, I also have reading updates where I kind of discussed the books a little bit more. Here, I'm just going to kind of tell you how I felt about them and my rating for them. So the first book I read in the month of December was The Hand on the Wall by Maureen Johnson. This was the third and final part in the original trilogy of the Truly Devious series. And I really enjoyed The Hand on the Wall and the ultimate conclusion. I gave it 5 stars because, like I said, it was really enjoyable. The story is super cute. These are such an atmospheric read for the fall. Like, you can totally envision Ellingham Academy and the mountainous landscape that it takes place on. So we follow Stevie, who attends Ellingham Academy in the first story, which is a school that was created in the 1930s by a very rich man named Albert Ellingham that was intended for gifted students who are very intelligent and desire to pursue a certain field. And so Stevie is accepted there because she enjoys mysteries, and Ellingham has a little bit of a mystery its own, as the wife and daughter of Albert Ellingham himself were kidnapped back in the 1930s when the school first opened, and a student was also murdered there. So Stevie has taken it upon herself to solve this mystery, and while she attends the school, another mystery takes place and things are happening and things are crazy, and it's just so good. It's really enjoyable to see Stevie put together the clues and solve these mysteries, and there's some really quirky and fun characters in this book. And I can tell you that I did not figure out who the ultimate perpetrator was, but like I said, these are really fun, and there is a 4th book coming out this year called The Box in the Woods, and I think it's more of like a companion book about Stevie following a new mystery somewhere else after attending Ellingham Academy, and I'm very interested in that. So the next book I read was one that was a little bit more of a disappointment for me, and it is The Roommate by Soraya Wilson. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. It was a romance about a woman who was disinherited by her family because of her career choice to be a teacher instead of follow in her father's footsteps and become CEO of her family's company. And so she is ultimately couch hopping because she doesn't have a place to live, and her aunt is a real estate agent, and her aunt tells her about this man who is looking for someone to live in his apartment with him and kind of take care of it while he travels, and also take care of his dog who has anxiety and can't travel with him. So she moves in with him, and obviously there is a romance, but it is very much a light, clean romance, and it is very, very slow burn. I just didn't really connect with the romance. There was also a lot of very cheesy and unrealistic, in my opinion, interpretations of what it is like to be rich. The main character did not have any real-world life skills, and to me it just felt a little forced, and it kind of took me out of the story. I found myself rolling my eyes a lot. I did enjoy the dynamics between the main character and the love interest, but ultimately this one just didn't really do much for me. And the next book is definitely the start of my favorite spiral, if you will. So I started A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, and my plan was to read this in December and then read Acomath in January and Aco War in February, and then we were going to be reading A Court of Silver Flames when it came out, because Mel Reads and a couple other people are doing a readathon, a read-along for this series for the new release of A Court of Silver Flames. So I read this and I had to know what happens next. So I immediately read A Court of Silver Flames and A Court of Wings and Ruin immediately after. But A Court of Thorns and Roses follows Feyre, who at the beginning of the story is living with her family in a small village. There is her 2 older sisters and her father, and they are very poor, and Feyre is in the woods to hunt for meat for her family because they are starving and it is winter time. And she sees a deer, and then before she can shoot the steer, a wolf approaches, and while she believes it could be a fairy, she ultimately decides she does not care, and she kills him anyway because she knows that she can sell his fur for money. And so that's what she does. She takes the meat home to her family and then sells the fur for money. And then the next day, another wolf comes to her home, storms in, and demands to know who killed his friend. So we find out it was indeed a fairy that she killed, and she must give her life for their life according to a treaty that was formed many years ago during a war between humans and fae. And so instead of killing her, this wolf says that she must come live with him on the other side of the wall in the fae world. And so that is what she does. It's supposed to be a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and I always forget that. But I can see it very vaguely, but I wouldn't have really guessed that from reading it. So we see Feyre go and live in the Spring Court with Tamlin, and a romance ensues between the two of them, and she ultimately finds out that the fairy realm is not all that she was taught it was as she was growing up. And there's not much more I can say than that, because anything towards the end is going to be a spoiler. But I loved this book so much, and I'm definitely going to be trying to pick up the Throne of Glass series this year, but I think so far this is definitely one of my favorite fantasy series I've ever read. I know that the writing is not perfect, but I just really enjoyed this and diving into this world. And so obviously I immediately picked up A Court of Silver Flames and A Court of Wings and Ruin, and I can't tell you anything. I can't tell you a single bit of the plots of these because it will spoil everything for this book, and it will ultimately leave you confused after you read this book, because I was spoiled. I tried to look up some fan art from this story, and people are probably laughing if you've read this and you know what I'm talking about, because I was so confused when I did that, and I advise you not to do that, because I was like, what? But I really loved how these all turned out, and I think I can say that the character dynamics that are in the second and third book are some of my favorite ever that I've read, and I cried in A Court of Mist and Fury and A Court of Wings and Ruin. Like, there are just things that happen at the ends of these two books that just tore my heart out. Like, I was sitting in my office on my lunch break and bawling my eyes out. Like, what? And I can say that in this story, I hated her family. Like, she's the youngest child, and you forget that because she's taking care of these people, and they are ungrateful. So ungrateful. I just really enjoyed this, and I found several friends who also really enjoyed this, and I think that makes a series that much more fun when you find people just kind of rant and rave about it with. And so I'm going to be doing a buddy read of A Court of Silver Flames when it comes out this year. Yay! After I read the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, I guess I kind of was in a book slump because my reading slowed down a lot, but I did do the audio of The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, and I really enjoyed this. I ended up giving it 4.5 stars only because there were a few elements like that they kind of felt fillery, and there were comments thrown in throughout the story of different pop culture references like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I think that they were kind of intended to give the characters something to talk about, but they didn't necessarily feel necessary. They just kind of felt fillery and insincere. They didn't feel to fit in the story, I guess. I don't know. That's just my opinion, but I did really enjoy this, and I definitely recommend the audiobook. I don't think I would have gotten through this as quickly as I did the audiobook, because while there's a lot going on in this book, it's not fast-paced for me. I don't think physically reading it would have been as fast-paced. But I think that Angie Thomas did a really great job of incorporating so many different conversations about systemic racism and racial bias in the United States. Like, so Star is the main character, and she feels like she lives in two worlds, basically. Her family lives in a part of, I believe, Chicago, while she attends a school, a private school on the other side of town. And so she feels like she has to kind of be two versions of herself in these two different worlds she lives in. She can be one person with her family and friends who live in this with her on that side of Chicago, but she has to be somebody else while she attends private school where she has her white boyfriend. I think that there were just so many elements in here that were woven together really well. Star's father is a former gang member. Star herself is a black girl dating a white boy. Star had a friend who died as a result of gang violence. Star's family wants to move out of the area they live in and find somewhere that they feel safer living. But obviously the biggest plot point of this whole story is the fact that Star and her friend are leaving a party after a shooting has broken out, and on the way home they are pulled over by a police officer, and her friend who was driving is shot by the police officer after he opens the door to ask Star if she's okay. And it follows Star as she tries to cope with the loss of her friend and also navigating the fact that she was a witness to this and trying to protect herself while also feeling the need to stand up for her friend, as the media basically tells lies about him and the situation that happened that night. And it's very powerful. As you can tell, I mean, multiple awards. This was such a good book, but like I said, there were just those few elements that just kind of pulled me out of the story, and I just knocked off that half star. But this is a lot of people's favorite book, and I think Andy Thomas did really well with this, and I'm definitely going to be picking up more of her stories. And it's also notable to mention that her prequel to this is coming out in January 2021, if it's not out by the time I get this uploaded. But it is about Star's father as he was growing up. So that's really interesting, and I can't wait to pick that up as well. Then next, because I could not get enough of the world, I did a buddy read of A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas with one of my friends on Bookstagram, and we started reading this on Christmas Eve, but I did not finish it until many days later, just crazy times. But this is a novella, and it was very fun to get back into this world after finishing the series and following those people whose character dynamics I just really love, and seeing more of them in kind of a lighter scenario than what we saw in the previous books. We kind of got some insight into what we're going to see in A Court of Silver Flames, and it was just really fun. And I was kind of worried before going into it because I saw a lot of people talking about how it felt a little bit like fan fiction and something they didn't really need. But I think if you go into it knowing that there's not really much of a plot, it's just kind of a feel-good story about some of your favorite characters, then I think you'll really enjoy it as well. Finally, I had to get in some shorter reads towards the end of the month because I was trying to get as many points as possible for my team. So I went on Kindle and found some romance novellas, and the only one I was able to get through was Stuffed by Mink, and I gave this 3 stars because, I don't know, it was quick. It was a very fast read. I think it was only like 120 pages, and I read it in like 2 hours maybe. And this follows a girl who works for a kind of like a Build-A-Bear workshop. You come into the store and make your own stuffed animal, but on the side she actually handcrafts stuffed animals and then sells them on like Etsy, and she actually does pretty well with it. Well, we also get the perspective of a man who had previously been working for that company that makes the toys, and something happens and he gets fired, but he is actually an operative who was hired to kill the CEO of this company, and he thinks that the main character, who had a mishap in previous months where she got rid of a bunch of stuffed dogs that she thought were ugly and didn't fit the toy line, and the male main character accidentally took the van that she had stowed them away in, and then he was arrested for theft, I guess. He thinks that she is also an operative who is undercover and trying to sabotage his mission so that she can get to the CEO before him. And so he approaches her, and it's just so it's kind of comical looking back on it. But a romance ensues between the two of them, obviously very quickly, very insta love because it was a novella, but I don't know, it was kind of cute and a quick romance, and I ended up kind of enjoying it, but it's definitely not something that I would just rave over. And then also, I did read a very large chunk of A Promised Land by Barack Obama. I listened to the audiobook, which is just fantastic, but I am like still like 6 hours away from the end of it, so I'll be finishing that in January. But I'm really enjoying it. It's really nice to see like his point of view from the bills and acts that he passed while in office, because obviously we only get to see one side of things and we see different arguments from different people, but it's interesting to see, actually hear his thoughts as he was going through this. And it's so refreshing to see him talk about how much he actually cares for change and the American people. And I think it's just a story that a lot of people can really enjoy listening to. As a matter of fact, my husband, who is not very much a reader and tends to shy away from political factoids, he actually was enjoying listening to the audiobook with me as well, I believe. But like I said, I'm really enjoying that, and I will definitely be finishing it in January and talking more about it then. But that is all the books that I read in the month of December, and I thank you guys so much for watching, and please let me know what were some of your favorite books that you read in 2020. And also, if you participated in the readathon, I hope you were on Team Snowflake and that you won with me. But I think everyone did so well during the readathon, and it was so much fun, and I can't wait for next year because I'm definitely going to participate again if it is happening. But if you participated, let me know what your favorite book was that you read during the readathon. But that is all from me for now, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!